time to be with us. As you know, we're launching this very important project for the Donahue Ethics Center, trying to capture the story about the transformation of Lowell and how so many leaders, business and civic leaders such as yourself, really led the charge. And a lot of that was based around kind of a philosophy. I phrase it as doing well and doing good, but you all had quite a team and a partnership. So it's our greatest hope that we create an archive through the Donahue Center for Ethics that will serve as an example for the next generation and for those around us who want to think about how we can contribute to society and make communities a better place. So thank you for being with us.
Yes, thank you so much.
Marie, did you want to start?
So we thought that we would just start right at the beginning. Tell us about where you grew up, where you went to school, how you met Dick.
Sure. Well, I was born and grew up in New Britain, Connecticut, which is, or was, I guess maybe it still is similar to Lowell. It was a mid-sized city, and we had a lot of different ethnic groups there, mainly Polish. It had, instead of mills, it was a manufacturing city, and it had Fafner Ball Bearing and Stanley Works and things like that. So it had a lovely little downtown like Lowell did. And as I say, many ethnic groups. So I grew up in a mixed society. It's very similar to Lowell. So when I came here, it wasn't a strange place. It was like my own hometown. And I went to high school there and then went to college, LaSalle. It's called LaSalle University now. And then graduated from there and worked at IBM. And that was interesting because I never expected to go from, it was a junior college. I never expected to go from junior college to working in a corporation. I thought I would transfer to Tufts. I wanted to go to Tufts University, but this man came to campus. And at the time I was doing part-time working for the dean of the college, and he offered me a job after interviewing working at IBM. So the pay was fantastic, $100 a week.
I was just going to ask if you remember what it was.
Oh,
Also,
very well.
What
I
year
felt
was
rich.
that? Do you remember what year was that you started working there?
That would be 1949.
Okay. Okay. So $100 a week in 1949.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's great.
Yeah, it was very good. And the job was interesting because it was in sales. And I was one of 5 women that were working in sales for IBM across the country at that time. As you know, it was a very male-oriented company.
Yes.
Until recently, actually. But our job was to help them sell these brand new, innovative, electric typewriters to colleges and businesses across the country. So I worked out of the Boston office. There were twins that worked out of New York, another woman in Chicago, and one in LA. So we're 5 of us in sales in the whole company. So it was very interesting, as I say, very male-dominated company. And we had to, I'm going off the thing, but it's just kind of interesting.
It is
We
interesting.
had
Go
to
ahead.
dress in a certain way. I had to wear a suit, a gray or navy suit every day, and a hat and gloves and so forth.
Oh my goodness.
Very different in those days.
We're guessing it wasn't a pantsuit in those days.
So anyway, I went from there. And while I was living and working in Boston, I met my husband, who was in law school.
Okay.
And that's how it all started.
Well, how did you actually meet? Were you trying to sell him a typewriter?
No, he was much too poor. No, actually, as I say, we lived together, but we were living at the time in a little brownstone on Beacon Hill. I was living with 3 women I went to college with, and then he was living with 3 other law students. So we were on the 2nd and 3rd floor, and he was on the 4th and 5th floor.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's how we met. And it was a long, interesting journey.
And what law school was he at? Law school in Boston?
Yes, BU.
Oh, he's at BU. Okay.
Yeah. So that's how I ended up in Lowell. Because of course, this was his hometown.
So when you first got married, you moved back to Lowell, or was that when you also, did you come back to Lowell, or then when did you go to DC?
Oh, that was well into our marriage.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we were married in 51. So we came right to Lowell. He graduated. After he graduated, we got married and then moved to a little apartment here in Lowell.
Do you remember where the apartment was? What part
Oh,
of,
yeah.
what part of town?
Andover Street. And it was a funny little, it was a house. 150, I think it was 151. No, 555 Andover. And it was a Victorian home. And these 2 elderly women, sisters, lived on the 1st floor, and we lived on the 2nd floor in a little apartment. And they kept it so cold. They never turned on the heat, and they wore their spring coats. In those days, you had spring coats. They
Yeah.
wore their spring coats all winter.
In
So
the
we were
house.
always cold. But it was fun.
So, and did you, when you first moved here, you already mentioned that Lowell reminded you of your own hometown. Did you get involved in the city right away, or maybe through your kids in school? Like, how did you, like, what were some of those initial connections with the city?
Well, I started having kids right away.
Yeah.
So all of that was delayed. I didn't really get involved until the kids started to go to school.
Okay.
And then I got involved in the usual, the CCD, the PTA. And
And
the
then,
church activities and all of that.
and where was your husband working at that time? Was he working in Lowell?
Yes. Yeah. He started out working in Lowell. And
For one of the
it
law
was a
firms?
family firm. It was
Oh,
Donahue
okay.
and Donahue family
Yeah.
firm. His father and his grandfather were both lawyers.
Okay.
And his grandfather actually was in the 1800s. He was early on a lawyer here in Lowell.
Oh, wow. So a long family tradition then in
Yes.
law
Yeah.
in the city. That's
Yeah.
excellent. And are
And
any
his
of your
brother
kids-
was a lawyer here in Lowell, and his uncle was a lawyer here in Lowell. So
right? And I'm sure some of your children are lawyers here in Lowell.
well, no, they're lawyers,
No?
but not here in Lowell.
Okay.
So
So,
Nancy, maybe this would be a good time to transition to that time when you and Dick got involved with the JFK administration. Dick
Yeah.
was asked to travel down to DC. You went with him. Children, can you tell us a little bit about that time?
Yeah, that was interesting. It started out because actually when we were living in Boston and Dick was still a law student and I was still working, JFK was running for senator against Henry Cabot Lodge here in Massachusetts. And we both volunteered for that campaign. So I would rush home from work and go right down to the Kennedy headquarters. And that was a very exciting time. And that's when we started volunteering for JFK. So we knew him for a long time. And then Dick and myself, we kept volunteering in all of his campaigns. And in the presidential campaign, after that was successful, he asked Dick if he would come to Washington to work in the White House with him. So we talked it over and said, okay, let's go. So by that time, I had 6 children. And so we moved to Washington for 3 years. And then tragedy struck.
Yeah.
A week after we came home, it was just 1 week from when we came home.
Oh,
So we left at a very happy time.
right.
He let us have the presidential boat that went up the Potomac with a lot of the staff and so forth. So we left on a very happy note, only to be.
So you and your husband had made the decision to stop working for JFK in the White House 1 week prior to his assassination.
Yeah, we decided back in the summer because I wanted to get back here to get the kids in school.
Right.
So I came back in August and he flew back just a week before the president was shot.
Right.
So 1 week later, we were on the plane to go to the funeral.
Wow. That must have been a shock, for anybody to have lived through that time.
Yeah, it was really unbelievable.
But if I could just back up, when you first both started working for JFK, all of JFK's campaigns were really notable for their grassroots effort and movement and their connection with the people. And do you think that some of that experience that you were involved with, do you think that carried over into some of you and Dick's own work here in Lowell? Because it's all, his campaigns were very well known for their organization, their connection with the people. And to be part of that at that time must have been exciting.
Oh, it was. And when he came to Lowell to campaign, it was wonderful to see him because he was a people person. And he came back several times, but there was this little Irish woman when he'd have the big receptions with some of his sisters and maybe his mother. And at that time, then it was his wife, Jackie. But he remembered this little Irish woman who had come through a reception line before when he was here. And yeah, it was very exciting to see him and how he campaigned. I mean, as I said, he was a people person and people just were drawn to him. And of course, he was young and handsome and had a beautiful wife. And,
we have at the university, we have a great photo of him walking outside of Cumnock Hall. And that was when he was a senator. So he was here in Lowell and he was somehow connected with the university because we have this one great photo of him walking outside of Cumnock. But when he was a senator, not when he was president.
Yeah. No, it was great. It was a very exciting time for us.
Right.
Be associated with him and to know him as we did.
Yeah. And so what would you say, like when your husband worked for JFK, what kinds of duties did he have, or what was his skill set? Like today, the words we would use are skill set. But what were some of the things that your husband was doing that?
Well, his main job was to be the liaison between the White House and Congress. Okay. So he worked with Congress, both senators and representatives, and that was his main job.
Right. So that means he was also a very good people person then.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Right.
He was a tough guy.
Oh, really? Did he know how he knew how to hold people to the line?
Oh yeah.
So, well, maybe we can use that as a transition to Nike, because working with a big company like that through a time of transition would take someone with a pretty clear vision. So how did you transition from leaving the White House, coming back to Lowell, and then working with Phil Knight out in Oregon?
Well, when we came back, of course, Dick tried to get his practice up and going again, which is and why we mainly came back was so he could support the family a little better. In those days, the staff at the White House was very poorly paid. I
Oh,
mean, it was mostly an honor to be working, I guess. I don't know.
right.
But it was not well paid at all. So yeah, we had to pinch our pennies while we were there.
Right.
But everyone else did that we knew, so that was not a big deal.
Right.
I mean, you did it because you wanted to work for your country,
Right.
your president. You
Right.
didn't do it to see, how much you'd get paid or where the deals were, anything like that. It was very, I'm sure there was a lot of corruption here and there, but it was not like it is today.
Yeah.
Say that.
Right.
But anyway, yeah, so to transfer, Dick came back here and then he got involved with the legal side of things and he got to be president of the Mass Bar and things like that. So he volunteered his time for a lot of that kind of thing. And one of the things, he was on the board of governors of the lawyers across the country and a national association. And at that time, he met another lawyer, John Jacqueline, who was from Eugene, Oregon, and he was on the board, and they got to be very close friends.
Okay.
And John Jacqueline was a best friend of Bill Bowerman, who was Phil Knight's coach.
Right.
And Bill Bowerman and Phil Knight formed Nike
Right.
together. So John was their first legal expert when it
Okay.
was
Early
another.
on.
Oh, yeah, early. I mean,
Yeah.
he was when there were three of them involved, really, because John lived across the street. Well, it was not a street really, because they both had big ranches from Bill Bowerman.
Yeah.
And he and Bill were really close friends. And his wife, Barbara, whose waffle machine they used to make the first waffle sole for Nike. So
Yeah,
they were
I don't- wait,
longtime
wait,
neighbors and friends.
I don't know that story about the waffle sole, waffle sole for the sneakers. They actually used
They actually used Barbara's waffle machine.
and they put the rubber in to make the
Yeah.
sole.
Yeah,
Well, I guess she never made waffles with it again.
I don't think so. But Barbara was a great person and Bill was terrific. So anyway, John got to know Dick really well and they hit it off. So then when the company got bigger,
Right.
they needed more expertise. And one of the areas they wanted some help was in the work with Washington,
Oh,
because
right.
then it starts the rules and regs and all that stuff.
Right.
And
Right.
how do you get yourself around Washington? Who do you see? Et
Right.
cetera, et cetera. So they asked Dick then to help them out. So he did for a bit and they asked him to be on the board. of
Sorry,
Nike.
Nancy, do you remember what years this was?
Well, it was like 59 probably,
Okay.
because we moved out there in 60.
Okay.
So it started in 58, 59.
Okay. But I have one other question for you that may or this is totally just a tangent, but I'm just curious if, given your family's connection with Nike, how your family reacted to the new movie Air.
Well, we haven't seen it yet.
Okay. I would love to know what you guys think.
No, I haven't seen it yet.
Okay.
But, speaking of that and Nike and values and so forth,
Right.
one of the things that Phil Knight wanted to Dick there, and Dick was brought it, well, actually at the board, that's why Phil kind of hopped on it, was to about how do we say it, philanthropy, I guess,
Right.
and what people should think about philanthropy and doing things for others and getting involved in that culture, because Phil admitted he had no experience in that. And Dick had, with the foundation and so forth,
Right.
and being very involved in volunteering. And so Phil Knight said, that was one of the most important things that he wanted Dick to work on. And he said
Right.
he changed the culture of Nike that way.
Right. Okay. And actually, that was my next question, was whether he went out there to work and commuted back and forth, or if the family moved out to Eugene. So you did all move out there?
No, we didn't,
Oh, okay.
because the family was large at that time. And I had a lot going on here, and I was very involved in the city at that time in a lot of
Okay.
organizations.
Right.
So when Phil asked him to come out, and this was after he was on the board for a couple of years, asked him to come out and be, COO.
Right.
We talked it over, and I said, well, that's all right, but I said, we're not going to move there because the
Right.
kids are all in school in different schools.
Sure.
And I was still involved here. So I said, no, if we do it, I said, the deal is I'll spend 2 weeks in Lowell and 2 weeks in Oregon.
Oh
And
my gosh.
that was it. We're not going to fudge around here. So
Right.
that's the way it went. So I
Wait.
did the commuting every 2 weeks back and forth.
For how long did you do that?
3 years.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
And this is, but again, like that, we think of some of these things now today because we have a lot of conveniences, like a Zoom call or even just transportation. You were going across the country on a plane every 2 weeks.
It was a lot easier traveling then.
Yeah, that part is true. Right.
Yeah,
You would just go down to Logan, right? And just fly
Yeah.
nonstop.
No, there was no nonstop then. We always
Oh.
had to go through Salt Lake or
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my
But
goodness.
it was easy.
Yeah.
And
I
how
mean,
many
we just did
children,
it.
how many children did you have at that point, Nancy?
How many kids?
Were all the kids born by then, or
Let's see.
Yeah. I had to think.
so all 11 were
Yeah,
living at home and being taken care of?
yeah. And at that time then I was lucky because I had a woman from Colombia who came, and she lived here.
Yeah.
She and her son, so there were 12 kids living here.
Okay.
And then I had extended family who all pitched in.
Right. Now, at this time, you said you were already involved in the city. So in those, what activities and organizations were you involved with early on like that?
Oh, I was, well, starting back, I guess, I don't know. With all the things I volunteered to, I kind of forget.
They
But
all run together.
one of the first things was probably, well, I started, I got MRT going, and then I was very active in the United Way. I don't know, there was a lot of things.
Right. Were you, so one of the things that I put together a history of the university, and I actually ran down to the MRT office to get a photo from you. This was back in 2012 of you and Yo-Yo Ma.
Yes.
When you brought him. So is that one of the activities you were involved with at this time in those early years?
Yeah, I was involved with the university through John Duff, who
Okay.
was president, and a neighbor.
Right. Okay.
And so John, for some reason, asked me to be head of this, or I don't know what you call it, work for this foundation that he wanted to set up, where he'd get some funds, outside of the state funding. So he set up this foundation, and the idea was he was interested in the arts and
Right.
and promoting that here. So he asked me to help him, I guess because of MRT, I don't know. He asked me to help him
Right.
with that. So I said, sure, not knowing what
Right.
or how to do anything. So I got a couple of friends, Peggy Bouchard and Mary Lou Doherty and Frank McCarowitz. And so we said, okay, we got to get some world-class artists here. How do we do that?
Right.
So we just found agents and we started calling and said, what we were doing. So
Right.
we did have world-class artists here. We
You
had Yo-Yo
did.
Ma, we had Isaac
Yeah.
Stern,
Yes.
we had Robert Merrill, we had
Yeah.
Benny
You had-
Goodman,
You had Marcel Marceau.
Marcel Marceau. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but again, just to get back to Yo-Yo Ma, because I just love this. I love the photo of you and him, but he's clearly so young at that point too. So he really was at his young sort of phenom age
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
you brought him up here.
Right.
So do you remember any more about that particular, when he came in that particular event?
Well, he was a lovely young man. He
Yeah.
really was. Very easy to work with,
Right.
and I have a picture of him on the plane, and he signed it to me, to Nancy. What did he say? What did he say? He said, to Nancy, have cello, will travel.
That's
So
great.
he was great. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was very great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like between John Duff, but then also yourself, if you had already worked with MRT, you, like, of all the kinds of activities or even philanthropy you could be involved with, the arts and culture seem to be a focus of yours. So could you just say why you yourself value so much increasing other people's exposure to the arts, why you value that?
Well, I really have no idea. I have to be truthful.
That's okay. That's what we want.
I had no artistic talent whatsoever.
Right.
I always admired artists.
Right.
And I have fond memories of going to the opera in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yeah.
And I always wished I could, when I was in the high school choir and chorus and things like that.
Right.
I always wished I had more artistic talent. And I just knew, from doing those things early on in high school and college, that it's such an important part of people's lives and what it does to
Right.
bring people
Right.
together. And,
Right.
so I guess it just kind of sat there.
Right.
But I mean, I had no particular talent for doing any of it. When they came to ask me to help start a theater here,
Yeah.
I had no clue,
Yeah.
no clue,
Yeah.
at all. So
So, well,
I was just on the other end of things.
so yeah, maybe you could say more like what was that end that you brought to it? Like in terms, like how would you see your own skills or your own contributions from that more administrative maybe side of things?
Well, I just saw that, it should be done. It should
Right.
be here. Things like that should be here.
Right.
And I could help do that
Right.
as best I could,
Right.
not knowing whether I could or not, but just kind of the door opened. So I just walked in and said, well, let's give it a shot.
Right.
Basically.
Right.
And MRT was actually housed at UMass Lowell, wasn't it, in the beginning?
Yeah, it started. Yeah.
Oh, I
because
didn't know that.
Because of John Duff. Yes, our big opening with searchlights and everything, Dracula, was at Moloney Hall.
That's right.
Oh, I'm sitting in Mahoney Hall right now.
Yeah, well, that's where it all started.
My goodness, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I thought that you were always down at the Lowell Memorial Auditorium.
No, no, we
Okay,
started right there at the university.
right.
It was great. It was
Do you remember what the first show was with those
Dracula.
spotlights? Oh, sorry, you just said that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Nancy, can you talk a little bit about the MRT, which is such an important part of the city? And, what were some of the game changers? How did it morph from this small organization tucked away on South Campus at UMass Lowell to something that now is a centerpiece of the city? Any highlights there that you wanted to share?
No, I think what made it work, well, it's still trying to make itself work. Every year it's a work in progress because it depends on, funding and so forth. But the thing is, what made it work was the involvement of so many people. you just, and there was a lot of enthusiasm. And we were all young at that time. I mean, the people that I gathered together mostly were in their 30s.
Right,
I was in my 40s.
right,
And so it was the enthusiasm of gathering people together. I guess that was the thing that I could do.
right,
And that probably came from, unbeknownst to the Kennedy campaigns, where you gathered people and got the
Right.
enthusiasm going.
no,
And also the example, I have to say, of Paul Tsongas, who
that,
so much here.
he's actually on our list of questions next, so let's move to that, because you and Dick also worked with him, and so I would love to hear more about that energy and enthusiasm in Lowell, and this would be the 70s, right? The early 70s.
Mhm.
Because it does seem like there were a lot of young people that were interested in keeping the city a vital location. So if you could talk a little bit more about what was happening in the city at that time. They were trying to bring the connector in. People had some people hated that, some people loved that. So if you could sort of characterize those years with Paul Tsongas, that would be great to hear.
Well, there again, they were young and enthusiastic, and they had visions of what was needed, and they worked hard at it. And as I say, their great strength was gathering other people to
Right.
their vision. And
Right,
then there was Dr. Mogan, who was
Right.
amazing too. So I can remember going to a meeting with him. It was just he and me, and we were going to see, I think it was, I don't know, someone. Anyway, we had this appointment with someone, and it was a hot summer day, and we were sitting waiting to see them. And Dr. Mogan was telling me all about his vision and what he was doing. His hands would go. And there
Right.
was this huge fly that was flying around his head and buzzing. Never bothered him. I
Right.
mean,
Didn't even notice.
yeah. And so I think that tells you, about both of them, is their passion
Right,
for what they see was needed here in the city.
right,
And then Dick was part of that too, a young,
right,
person seeing what they hoped Lowell
Right.
could and would be.
right,
And they, in their various areas, they all worked on that. And then he and a couple of others started the Lowell Community Foundation. Because Dick's vision for that was looking at the Boston Foundation.
okay,
He was very sure that that's what Lowell needed.
right. And part of that foundation, it's events and activities, but my own area is architecture. And so one of the things that I appreciated about Mogan and some of the other decisions made in those years was to preserve some of the historic structures and to make the city modern, but not at the expense of knocking down all of its
Right.
history. And the community foundation would be part of that in terms of the events that are being held in the city to keep people coming in.
You were on that, Jackie.
It was.
Well, you can talk about it better than I can.
I'll do that
You
with
were
my-
on the board. I wasn't. I was just on the sidelines on that one. Yeah,
Okay.
well, I was involved, in the beginning, but not, I wasn't, that was his baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think it has helped the city though, in terms of?
Oh, I think it's crucial. I mean, look at what it's done. It's done amazing, amazing things in this city.
It
And
has?
without it, I can't imagine the things that would not have happened.
So Nancy, just, you remind me, you were a part of another company that is a big part of the city of Lowell. You were actually on the board of directors of Enterprise Bank, if I remember correctly.
Oh, and you too.
And, similarly, I think the culture of the bank and making an investment in the city. Talk to us a little bit about your experience with Enterprise and why it was important to the leadership and the board to make such an investment in the city of Lowell as a business.
As a business, yeah. Well, there again, George had me on the committee, that committee. And well, George is great. He's just great. And he understands and understood how important a business can be in the leadership that a business has, and how people look to that for leadership and count on it. And he always, from the beginning, knew that that's where enterprise would be.
Yeah.
So he made a conscious decision to keep a lot of his, even just literally the branch banks in the city that people could access.
Yeah, I mean, he there again, it was a people to people thing,
Right.
which is very important. And George is, he's amazing. And how he brought that bank along and involved the people in the bank and the culture of the bank,
Right.
which was led by him. Yeah.
So
And there again, I would have to give credit to, a lot of people for that. Paul Songas for one, and my husband for one. The culture of the city, George wanted that as part of the bank. And felt
sorry,
it-
what do you mean about the giving Paul and your husband the credit for the culture of wanting to keep business in the city?
Well, yeah, just how much, how important it was for banks to be leaders
Right.
in that area.
Right.
And, not just a business.
Right.
More than a business. Everything was more than business.
Right. How what was some of the reaction with say the foundation and some of the other organizations when the national park came in 1980? How did the two different those different institutions or organizations, how did you work together?
Well, I don't know. I'm not on that, but everyone was thrilled when the park came.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that was a big plus to have the park here.
Right. In
Yeah.
what ways?
And all of the directors of the park that were here, the leaders, they were all great. I mean, they all just jumped right into Lowell and
right.
Mike Creasy, and I forget all their names. I can see their faces. Yeah.
Right. Did you see when the park came in 1980, was there a rather immediate visible change in the downtown?
Not immediately.
No, it took a while.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess I'm just saying, like, just that sort of maybe the energy there, that change was happening for the downtown. Because when you see some of the before and after photos, especially say Boarding House Park, right? Like that area in the before photos was not pleasant.
No.
And now you have the Mill Girl exhibit museum in the buildings on the left. You have the big park, and then you have the Boot Mill Museum behind. So, and again, all of that takes time, but for people that come to the city now, and myself included, I came in 2002. There's a tendency to think, well, that was always like that.
Yeah.
And then you see the before photo and you say, that was a lot of work.
A lot of work, a lot of money.
Yeah.
Federal
Exactly.
money, state money. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And foundation money, I'm sure, to any of those projects.
Yeah.
So when with Middlesex Community College, when they put up the Academic Arts Center there in the old train station,
Mhm.
that building was not looking so good before. Before it became
looked terrible.
Yeah. Do you remember anything about some of those decisions with some of those buildings to keep them or to because I think that it was a train station, and then I think I heard someone say it was a bowling alley for a while.
Oh, it was many things. Yes,
Okay.
it was. Yeah, and it was a theater. Rialto Theater was there.
Okay.
A movie theater.
Right.
yeah, it had a lot of different lives.
Wow.
But yeah, then I don't know who made the decision to turn it into well, it was a combination of the state and the, all of that. I
Right,
mean, Peter Ostello was very involved in all of that.
right, right.
And the building, we had a meeting there and it was totally gutted by that time.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
MRT looked at it to see if it could be a theater, but the expense was
right.
outrageous. I mean, that time it wasn't just a shell. It had, the innards were still there, but took millions. Yeah.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Well, you must be happy with the result now. I think the renovation of that building is a real great example of
Oh,
what can be
beautiful.
done.
Yeah,
it's-
beautiful.
It's beautiful, and the acoustics inside, it just seems
Yeah.
to be a really well done building now.
Yeah, they did a beautiful job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Definitely, would love to, and one of the questions we didn't ask you, you've received so many awards throughout your time here in Lowell in recognition for everything that you've given. Any highlights of any of those awards you wanted to make note of and why they were important to you?
Well, they were all kind of important
Yeah,
because it was all little different pieces of what I did.
yeah.
Um,
Well, I know MRT recognized you, Girls Incorporated recognized you, Woman of the Year. We recognized you with an honorary degree.
well, that was big. That was big. That was probably the biggest.
Well, you deserve every one of them.
Every one of them.
You've
Yeah.
given so much to your community, and we are forever grateful for everything that you have done. If you could, we'd switch gears. I remember talking with you about a gift that you wanted to make to UMass Lowell around ethics. And I
Mhm.
remember how strongly you felt that it was so
Yes.
critical that we create a center for ethical leadership and social responsibility. Can you talk about why that was so important to you?
Well, it's very important to me still. Because when you look around and see the change in attitudes and in thinking about everything that's going on in this country and the world, it's shocking to me. It's just so, I just think it's one of the most important things that has to be talked about and talked about and talked about is honesty and ethics, civility, respect, all of those things that go to make the world a better place. And somehow it's just been lost. And I feel very sad about it. And hopefully places like UMass Lowell and others can work to change that with the next generation. Because I mean, look, every day, it's just dreadful the way people are thinking and doing things. So I think it's crucial today to have that.
Well, certainly you and Dick have served as role models for so many of us. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think, some, and you have to remember that a lot of young people don't have the opportunity really to learn about ethics and civility because they
Right.
haven't seen it
Right.
and they didn't grow up with it maybe. So and you look at things, institutions that used to be looked up to, like the churches. I mean, that used to be where you would learn some of this. The churches, the police forces, all those were models that people looked up to, kids looked up to and learned from, and those have disappeared.
Yeah.
Really. So, and certainly not from our leadership in Congress. Let's talk about that. I mean, they used to be respected and looked up to, and not anymore.
Yeah.
You know, I just have to go back to one thing, excuse me.
Sure,
while I'm
no.
thinking of it. But I think early on, you know, you asked about what makes you involved, what made you involved in
Right,
volunteering and all this. But there again, by example, and this parallels being civil and respectful, etc., and
Right.
having ethics and good and bad. But I think there again, I was lucky because it goes back to my parents, because my mother always volunteered. I didn't know
right,
really what she was doing. I just knew that she was, you know, at the Red Cross, or she was at the
Right.
church, or she was doing this. So you kind of get it, if not by realizing it, but by osmosis,
right,
that that's how you are. You
right,
volunteer your time and so forth.
right,
And then in World War II, everyone had to volunteer and roll up their gum wrappers and do
right,
things like that. So it's an ongoing thing, and it's taught whether you know you're being taught or not.
right.
And I
Well,
think that's what's missing. And that's why this ethics is so important, because I don't think a lot of people ever had that.
right, right. And but even too, just as your own example, that obviously with a house full of children, that you were still finding the time to do these things. Because I think sometimes people say, well, I'm too busy, or I'll do this later, or, you know, I'll let someone else do that. So I would just say you probably have excellent time management skills.
Well, I look
Would that
back
be
and I
fair to
said, I don't
say?
know how the hell I did it. It's one big blur.
Yeah, no,
Nancy, just to shine a light back on you for a minute and what you brought to the city. And when I think about all the events and, you know, kind of the mantra for Nancy Donahue is you have to show up. You have to be there. And this is a city where people do show up and support each other, all the different nonprofits. And I think so many people were there because you were there all the time. Tell us about your philosophy and being part of a community, and what does that mean?
Well, you know, there's many times I wish I didn't have to show up, but I felt
I think we
I-
all.
I felt it was my responsibility. I mean, these people, you know, had done a lot in their way, no matter whether it was small or large. They're all helping with the same vision, and to make, you know, Lowell what it can be, and how you brought them along and talked to them about it. And so you kind of, it's a responsibility to show up, and, you know, and I loved it. I mean, I love being with people. Now, you know, I don't show up anymore. And
Okay,
because, well, that's just in the last couple of years, because things have changed here. But yeah, it was part of my responsibility as a person involved in the community, to be there and show up and support other people too.
well, you've certainly been a driving force to
Well,
creating the vibrancy that we still feel and enjoy in the city.
well, thank you. I just did what I thought I should do.